Okay, everybody, welcome again to our Tuesday night shiur, Parashat Vayigash. Shiur should be atlachat, the anonymous donor. Hashem should give him success in all his endeavors.
Amen.
Today we're going to deal with Parashat Vayigash, but we're also going to take a journey back to a little bit of Parashat Miketz. And we're going to see, because the Shla Kadosh, he brings down in his books, and he says that these three Parashot, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, really are all, they're all according to, they have one concept, and that concept is Yosef. And he says, if you look at all these Parshiot, Vayeshev, Miketz, and Vayigash, it's all one line. And the line is, he says like this, Berega sheKadosh Baruch Hu ra'a et ha'olam, when Hashem created the world, he saw the world, והעולם עמד על תילו, וירא את האלוקים את כל אשר עשה, והנה טוב מאוד. And Hashem saw that everything that he did, and it was very good. So Chazal say, what was the Kadosh Baruch Hu so happy with? What is he calling Tov Me'od? What is he calling that was very good? And it says, the Midrash says like this. The Midrash tells us that when a Kadosh Baruch Hu says Tov Me'od, it brings down a lot of things that Hashem said that what was Tov Me'od. One of the things, Amar Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, Ine Tov Me'od. What's Tov Me'od? Amar Rabbi Simon b'shem Rabbi Shimon bar Abba, Kol Amidot Batlu. Really, he says first, Tov Me'od is Midat HaPoranut. Poranut means that if a person has hardship. And then he says, Tov Me'od, this is the Midah of the Yetzirah is Tov Me'od. And then he says, Midah, you know what is Tov Me'od? Measure for measure. Midah keneged Midah, when Hashem saw that the world functions on Midah keneged Midah, measure for measure, he called it Tov Me'od. Comes Rabbi Simon b'shem Rabbi Shimon bar Abba and says, Kol Amidot Batlu, everything became nullified except this idea of Midah keneged Midah. Rav Huna b'shem Rabbi Yossi Amar, mitchilat birato shel olam tzafa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the beginning of the creation of the world, Hashem looked, שבמידה שאדם מודד בה, מודדים לו. In the way that you act, that's how they're going to act to you. The world runs on this principle of measure for measure. לפיכך אמרו חכמים, that's why our sages tell us, והנה טוב מאוד, זו מידה טובה. What does that mean? Measure for measure, the whole world runs measure for measure. And we're going to see, says the Shla Kadosh, that throughout Parashat Vayeshev and Parashat Miketz and Parashat Vayigash, you'll see how the whole situation is one big journey of measure for measure. And the Rambam comes and tells us, he says this idea of measure for measure, b'midah she'adam moded, ba modedim lo, and this idea that the way you act to others, that's how you're going to be acted to. וזה נראה לעיין בכל זמן ובכל מקום, this happens all the time, שכל מי שיעשה הרעות ויחדש מיני העוולות והפחיתיות, הוא עצמו ישיגהו נזק מאותן הרעות גופן אשר חידש. Whatever evil you create in the world, that same evil is going to come back and haunt you. So whatever it is that you do, that circle is going to come back and hit you.
It goes around, comes in.
So he said, he brings down the Chafetz Chaim and his city Radin. In the city of the Chafetz Chaim, the city Radin, there was this elderly woman who was a widow, and she was with her kids, and she was renting from a very wealthy man. And the wealthy man saw that she wasn't paying her rent. So he said, listen, I'm going to give you a week, if not, you got to go. And the whole city was trying to petition in her favor. At the end of the day, this is the widow. She has little children. It's the middle of winter. How are you going to throw her out? So this wealthy man didn't pay attention to anybody. A week went by, and the woman didn't pay her rent. And he says, listen to me, I'm giving you just one more week. You're not paying your rent, you're out. And yet again, another week went by, and she didn't pay her rent, and he threw her out, and this woman is sitting in the middle of the cold with her children. So of course the community, of course, took care of her and bought her a nicer place and made sure that she was well. Said the Chafetz Chaim, a man that his whole life wrote about Lashon Hara, wrote about slander. He said, you have to wait, because it doesn't make sense that if a person should do such an action, that something is not going to happen. And lo and behold, a couple weeks went by, and as the people of Radin with the Chafetz Chaim and this wealthy man are leaving the shul, a dog runs towards the crowd, and as everybody's running away, the dog starts to bite on the wealthy man. And this wealthy man, throughout the widow, the dog is biting him to the point where a person his whole body was full of bites. They took him in. It was obviously a deathly situation. And as they took him into the house, they realized that the dog that bit him was sick. And he was contagious. And this whole person's body now became contagious, and nobody could deal with him. Not only that, since they put him into the home, the furniture and everything was contaminated, therefore everything had to be burnt. And nobody could deal with this individual, nobody could even bury him. So the person had to be left totally alone with the dog bites and left to die without anybody burying him. Said the Chafetz Chaim, you see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never forgets. There's a midah keneged midah. You threw out that widow with her children, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that you had nowhere to be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that all your belongings were burnt up. And comes the Sefer Hasidim and tells us, what's the purpose really of measure for measure? Why is it that there is such an anagah, there is such a way of running the world called measure for measure? He says, it's to wake up a person. To wake up a person and tell him, my friend, your actions have ramifications. The world is not a place where you could do whatever you feel like doing. When you do something, it's going to come back and haunt you. And the Gemara even tells us that this midah keneged midah even affects great rabbis. The Gemara tells us in Masechet Brachot, Rav Huna had 400 barrels of wine. And the 400 barrels of wine went sour. And as he came to the sages, he said, listen, I had 400 barrels of wine and they all went sour. Look at your actions. Did you do something that wasn't right? Amar lehu, I'm Rav Huna, you're chosh at me, you have suspicion against me that I did something wrong? So they said to him, Amrule, mi chashib kedusha baruchu David dina belo dina? You are suspicious against God? You think if God did something to you, there wasn't a just reason? Amar lehu ekaman deshmiya le milta lena. If somebody heard about me something, please let me know. Amrule achi shmiyalan de lo evmar shipsha larisa. You have a guy that's working your field, and you didn't give him his payment. Comes Rav Huna and says, I didn't give him his payment, he didn't leave me anything to give him payment. What am I going to give him payment for? Nonetheless, but because Rav Huna was such a great man, in Shemayim they were very medayek, they were very stringent with him. And until Rav Huna accepted upon himself to pay the person, the Gemara says two options. Either the barrels turned back to wine, or the price of vinegar became like the price of wine. So you see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always very scrupulous about a person, measure for measure. And now we're going to go into realizing that this is the way that Hashem chose toward the world, and this is what Chazal is telling us in the Midrash, that this idea of measure for measure, that our actions have ramifications. So we're going to go and say, Ela Todot Yaakov, Yosef ben 17 שנה היה את אחיו בצאן והוא נער את בני בילה ואת בני זלפה נשי אביו והווה יוסף את דיבתם רעה על אביהם. So how did this whole situation start? It started by Yosef telling his brothers, telling his father about what his brothers did. What did he tell them? Abba, you know what they do? They eat ever min achai. They eat the animal while it's still alive. What does it say about Yosef? When they sold Yosef, it says, "Vayishchetu se'ir zin b'mechirato." They slaughtered a goat as they were selling Yosef, and they didn't eat ever min achai. They didn't eat a thing from a live animal. Now he said to his father, "Abba, you know what they call the children of the maidservants? Bnei Bila and Bnei Zilpha. They call them avadim. They call them servants. What does it say about Yosef? Le'eved nimkar Yosef. You said that your brothers call them servants, you're going to be sold as a servant." And what did Yosef say about his brothers? Al arayot. They're not modest with their relations. What did it say about Yosef? Where was he tested? In the house of Potiphar. What does it say? Vatisa eshet adonav etenav. And the wife of Potiphar, she looked at Yosef, she started to say, you said your brothers were immoral, let's see about you. to show you that everything that happens in the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does measure for measure. Now we know that Yosef was sent to where? To Mitzrayim, right? So listen to how this all goes. Very interesting. It says, why did Yosef go down to Mitzrayim? And he had this test of Eshet Potiphar. And he sat in the prison for 10 years. Why did he sit in the prison for 10 years? Why was it exactly 10 years that he sat in the prison? And then another 2 years later, but we'll see that later. Because he sat 10 years, because why? He spoke Lashon Hara about his 10 brothers. And when you speak Lashon Hara about your 10 brothers, what happens when a person speaks Lashon Hara? What do they do to him? A mitzorah, somebody who has leprosy, what do you do to him? You put him out of the machaneh, you have to kick him out of the camp, and he has to sit idle and not talk to anybody. So therefore, midah kineged midah, measure for measure, you, Yosef HaTzadik, spoke against Lashon Hara, against your brothers, therefore we're going to put you in the prison for 10 years. Now we know that when Yosef went down, when his father sent him, and he told him, go see what your brothers are doing. Says Rashi, comes Shimon and tells Levi, hey, Levi tells him, Ine ba lachalomot hazeh ba. That guy who has those dreams, this is Shimon talking to Levi, look, he's coming. And at the time that he was coming, really it says, the Kli Yakar comes and tells us that Shimon he didn't want to wait for Yosef to come in order to kill him. He wanted to throw arrows at him and kill him from a distance. Why did he want to throw arrows at him and kill him from a distance? Because when a person speaks slander, what is he doing? He's throwing arrows with his words. Therefore, Shimon said we have to do midah keneged midah. Now it says, what did they do to him? They threw him into the pit. Zalku oto into the bore. V'abor rek en bo mayim. And the boar didn't have water, but what does it have? Nachashim ve'akravim, snakes and scorpions. When a person speaks Lashon Hara, what is he compared to? A snake. Also it says, what did they do? They enticed the dogs upon him. Why did they entice the dogs upon him? Because since a person who speaks Lashon Hara is like those dogs, what did they do? They wanted to do measure for measure. Because kol mesaper lashon hara nidma kekelev. Why is he like a kelev? Amenavach v'choretz bilshono. Because a dog, what does he do? He barks with his tongue. That's what a person who speaks lashon hara is doing. So therefore, they wanted to do with the dog. Because as Am Yisrael was leaving Mitzrayim, what does it say? Ulechol bnei Yisrael lo echatz kelev leshono. The dogs didn't bark. Also, something very interesting that we all know. Why was the galut? Why did they go only to Egypt? Remember in the Agadah we sing Chag Gadya, right? Chag Gadya, Chag Gadya. It says Chag Gadya, de Zabin Abba betute zuzeh. What's Gdi? What does it mean, a goat? A goat is spelled how? In Hebrew, Gdi is Gimel, Daled, Yud. Gimel is 3. Daled is what? 4. Yud is 10. What is that gematria? 17. What's gematria Yosef Katan? 17. Ve'ata shuna ve'ata lekava ve'nachash l'shuna. It says, and he came and ate him. Who's considered like a dog? Paro. Paro is also like a dog. Why? Because it says that by the Navi, it says, Ko amar Hashem b'makom asher lakeku ha'klavim et dam navot yirku ha'klavim damecha gamata. Dogs, they like to lick blood. What did it say about Paro? Paro every day would take what? 150 babies, he would slaughter them, and he would make himself a bloodbath. So you see that everything is happening measure for measure. You, Yosef, did something that's considered to be like a dog because you spoke Lashon Hara. We're going to send you to a palace where their king is like a dog. So he says further on. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Tanchum bar Chalichai, Mipnei ma zachar Reuven limanot ba'atzalat tchila. Why was Reuven, the brother Reuven, why was he considered to be the first one that saved Yosef? מפני שהוא פתח בהצלת תחילה שנאמר וישמע ראובן ויצילהו מידם. So therefore it says that Reuven heard what the brothers wanted to do to Yosef, and he took him away, and he says, why should we? He tried to save Yosef. So what happens to Reuven? Really, where was the first Ir Miklat? What did Reuven do? The brothers wanted to kill Reuven. They wanted to kill Yosef. Comes Reuven and saves them. Basically, Reuven became a safe haven for what? For a person who's about to get murdered. Where is the first Ir Miklat that the Torah mentions? The first city where a person runs away when somebody wants to murder him. In which area? In Reuven. Where was it? In the Yarden, which was the Nachala, was the inheritance of Reuven. Look at how the Torah goes measure for measure in every action. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so diligent with a person. So he says, Vayishvu le'echol lechem. Right? As the brothers sat down to eat bread, Vaysu nehem, they looked up Vireh. As Yosef is sitting in the pit, what did the brothers do? They go and they have a meal. And they're sitting and having a festive meal. Vayru v'neuchat Ishmaelim ba'migilad. They saw these Ishmaelim, they're coming, right? And they saw that they're going down to Mitzrayim. Vayomer Yehuda lachav ma betza ki na'arog et achenu v'kisinu et damo. Why should we kill our brother? And make sure, don't let him die in the pit. And we're going to cover his blood. Lechu v'nimkaru le'Ishmaelim. Let's send him to Ishmaelim. Ve'adenu al tiyeh bo ki achinu b'sarenu. He's our brother, says Yehuda. Why should we let him die here in the pit? Let's sell him and let him make a servant. Now, why did Yehuda want to sell Yosef to become a servant? Because he wanted to punish Yosef measure for measure. Why? Because Yosef wanted to be a king over us. When Yosef relates the dreams to the brothers, what did he say to the brothers? I'm going to be a ruler over you and you're all going to bow down to me. Comes Yehuda and says, you know why we have to sell him as a servant? He wanted to make us servants. Let's sell him as a servant. So it says, after they accepted the advice of Yehuda, Vaikhu et kotonet Yosef, they took Yosef's garment. Vaishchetu seir ezim vaitbedlu et kotonet badam. They took it and they put it in the blood. They dipped it in the blood. Vaishlechu et kotonet tapasim. They took his garment, vayavo el avihem, they came to their father, vaymu zo matzanu, akerna kutonet bin chayim ilo. Dad, look, is this, you remember this? Vayaker veyomer kutonet bi chaya ra'a chalteo, tarof Yosef. Vayikra Yaakov simlotav, Yaakov ripped himself, he now became in a state of mourning, vayasem sak b'motnav, vaytabel abno yamim rabim. And Yaakov, what happened to him? Now he's sitting Shiva for his son because he doesn't know and he ripped his clothing. Kam Chazal and says, Vaika Yaakov simlotav, he ripped his garment. Rabbi Pinchas b'shem Rabbi Yosha Amar, Shvatim garmu la'avim likroa. What did the tribes do when they brought Yosef's garment? When they brought his garment and they showed it to their father, they caused their father to what? To rip his clothing. What did it say? When they went down to Mitzrayim, Shneimar Vaikru Simlotam. When Yosef Garam, what happens as Yosef is talking to the brothers, and the brothers find the Gavia in the sack of Binyamin, all of a sudden all the brothers, they rip out their clothing. Why? Because you caused your father to rip his garments, Yosef caused them to rip their garments. And because now, even though Yosef did it justly, what happens later on? Later on, Vayoshua kara simlotav. Later on, when it comes to there's a war, and Am Yisrael loses a few men in that war, and the Malach comes and talks to Yoshua. Yoshua also ripped his clothing. You know why Yoshua ripped his clothing? Because Yosef caused the Shvatim to rip their clothing. And where was Yoshua from? From Shevet and Ephraim. Ephraim and Menashe were the sons of Yosef. Now Binyamin also, it was also because of Binyamin that the tribes ripped their clothing. But hold on a second, everybody's going to say, how come Binyamin? Binyamin didn't know any of this. He wasn't in the sale. He wasn't around when the brothers sold Yosef, right? And at the time that Yosef revealed himself to the brothers, what happens? What happened to Binyamin? Who do we know that's from the Shevet Binyamin that also ripped his clothing? We go all the way to Purim. And it says, Bepurim Shenemar Vaikra Mordechai et begadav. And Mordechai ripped his clothing. So, the first question that everybody should jump out at me and ask me, what did Binyamin do? Binyamin wasn't involved in any of this. Comes the Sefer HaYashar and tells us like this. When Yosef and the brothers, he invited them for a meal. They had lunch together. So when Yosef and the brothers sat down for lunch, you know what Yosef did? He comes over to Binyamin and says, hey Binyamin, it's me Yosef. It's me, your brothers. And listen, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to check the other brothers. I'm going to put the goblet in your place. I want to see if they're going to do tshuva, Binyamin. So Binyamin knew what his brother Yosef was doing. And he sat back, and because he sat back and allowed this to happen for his brothers to rip their clothing, Mordechai later on in the generations that came from Binyamin also had to rip his clothing. We know also Menashe, the son of Yosef, also caused, because he was part of the whole way that Yosef told him, go do this, go do that. He gave him strict instructions. He also caused them to rip their clothing. What does it say about Menashe? לפיכך נתקרא נחלתו חציה בארץ הירדן וחציה בארץ כנען. That's why the Shevet Menashe was split, one over the side of the river and one in Eretz Yisrael. Measure for measure throughout the whole story of Yosef. So comes, it says, Yehuda, what did Yehuda do? He took a Seir Ezim, right? He took the Seir Ezim, he took the blood of a goat. And he took the garments of Yosef and he dipped them in the blood of a goat. Comes the Tzror Amor and tells us like this. Why did he do that? Why was it B'Seir Ezim? Why did Yehuda, when he could have chosen to dip it in a dog's blood? Why did he dip it B'Seir Ezim? So it says when Yaakov went to get the blessings from his father, Amar Yitzchak, Ata ze beni Esav? Is that you, my son? Im lo? So he says like this, when Yehuda came to Yaakov, what did he say to him? Akerna ketonet bidchai imlo. The same words that Yitzchak says to Yaakov, he says to him, Ze beni Esav imlo, is this you my son or not? Comes Yehuda and says to his father, is this the garment of your child or not? In those same languages, even Yaakov Avinu was dealt with measure for measure. So when they brought the kutonet in front of Yaakov, they said to him, look what we found. So comes the Midrash and says, Yehuda, how could you be so insensitive? You go to your father and you take the garments of Yosef and you tell them, and you wave it in front of your father and you tell him, do you recognize this? Says the Midrash in Parashat Vayigash Tanchuma, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yehuda, Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to Yehuda and says to him, En lecha banim, Yehuda, you know why you're like this? You don't have children. Ad achshav en ata yodea tzar banim, you don't know what it's like to have to lose a child. Ata tiganta et avicha ve'eteta oto. Look at the words of the Midrash. You fried your father and you made him make a mistake. Chayecha, says the Midrash, Yehuda, tisa isha v'tigbor et banecha v'tida matzar banim. You know why Yehuda buried his children? Because he was so insensitive in the way that he showed Yaakov about Yosef. When he took the garment of blood and he said to Yaakov, look, do you recognize this? Such insensitivity, says Hashem, we're going to cause you to marry a woman and we're going to cause both your children to die. Now, where did Yehuda dip the clothing of Yosef? In the blood of a goat. Seir Ezim, right? Says the Midrash, Kasher Yehuda, when Tamar dresses up like a harlot and she tries to make Yehuda come to her, right? So Yehuda comes and says to her, Avoy laich, let me come to you. Vatomer, ma titen li ki tavoy laich. What are you going to give me if you come to me? Amar le Yehuda, Anochi eshlach lach gdi ezim. I'm going to give you a goat. Minatzon. And she says to him, I'll give you that. What did he give it to her? He gave it to her until he could pay her. Take this in the meantime. So says the Torah, and after Yehuda was with her, Vayishlach Yehuda et gdi ezim beyad re'u ad lumi lakach ta'avon miyad isha velo matzah. So he sends them back now. He sends back. He goes, I want to get back. I'm going to send the Gdiazim to get back what I gave her. I gave her my tefillin. I gave her all those things. ויאמר יהודה תיקח לה פן יהיה לבוא, הנה שלחתי הגדי הזה ואתה לא מצאתה, but he couldn't find her. So he says, look what happens. This Gdiazim keeps playing back itself. Why? Says Rabbeinu Yoel, Vaishchetu seir ezim. Why did the brothers, when they dipped the clothing of Yosef, they took a goat and the seir ezim, meaning the goat, and they slaughtered it and they dipped the brothers, the clothing of Yosef. Vaishchetu seir ezim is Rashi Tevot what? Esav. Why? Because since Yaakov Avinu tricked his father, Bigdiazim, he took the hair of a goat and he put on him, so when his father touched his hands, he would think that it's Esav. What did the brothers do? They tricked him with Seir Azim. You tricked your father with Seir Azim, we're going to trick you with Seir Azim. You see over here that even Yaakov Avinu, since he did something that seemingly wasn't 100%, if the Torah didn't say it, we couldn't say it, the brothers do measure for measure. Now watch this midrash. So as Yaakov Avinu is with Leah that night, and he thinks it's Rachel, and in the morning he wakes up, V'ine Leah, and it's Leah. Amar la, he says to Leah, Amari mita batramta, you trickery, but the daughter of a trickster. What did you do to me? Lav balayla karina Rachel, didn't that night I called you Rachel? Vat anitli, and you answered me. Imagine, Yaakov is with Leah, and he's saying to her Rachel, and she says, yes, it's me, Rachel. Amra le, you know what Leah answers Yaakov? Are you talking to me? You're telling me what I did to you? She says to him. Talmidim lo kacha yatzovach lecha avocha Esav. Didn't your father call you Esav, and what did you answer? Ve'at anitla, and you said I'm also Esav. He goes, I learned from you. When your father said Esav, you also said it's me. So when you called me Rachel, I also said it's me. You're coming to me? Look at this, measure for measure. We know that on Yaakov it says, Vaitabel avno yamim rabim, and he sat Shiva for his son yamim rabim. How many years? This one everybody knows, 22 years. Why? Because 22 years that Yaakov Avinu didn't do Kibud Avaim. So you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very meticulous with this measure for measure. So at the end of the day, at the time that Tamar, everybody finds out that Yehuda was with Tamar. Vayaker Yehuda vayomer tzadka mimeni. It's me, I was with her. He didn't want Tamar to be burned alive. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'midah keneged midah. Ani eda latet lecha et hakavod achi gadol. Since you were able to overcome this and not allow Tamar to burn herself, I'll give you the greatest gift. What's the greatest gift? Mashiach. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu give Mashiach? Because we know that the whole reason that Am Yisrael went down, they sold Yosef, that's why they had to go down to Mitzrayim. And it says that if the brothers didn't sell Yosef, and he wouldn't go down to Mitzrayim and become the ruler of Mitzrayim, how would Yaakov Avinu have to be taken to Mitzrayim? He would have to be shackled and chained and taken to Mitzrayim. So Hashem says to Yehuda, even though you were part of an action that the way to the means were no good, but the ends were good, in the same way I'm going to put you in a journey where the means are no good, because your children are going to die, but the ends is going to be very good. Mashiach is going to come out of you. Measure for measure. So, when the brothers come down to Yosef, what does he call them? Meraglimatem, you're spies. Right? They tell him you're spies. Meraglimatem, you came to spy the land. Why does he tell him that? There's a hint that we said once, that we know that the brothers later on, when he says Meraglimatem, The Chidat tells us something very interesting. They say, Lo meraglim anachnu, we're not meraglim. Yosef tells them meraglim atem. He was really hinting to them that they're going to be later on, they're going to be the 10 spies that are going to go by being sent by Moshe Rabbeinu. They're going to be the 10 spies that are going to go spy the land. And why did he say to them meraglim? He says he was hinting to them, you should know, for having to sell me, you're going to come back in a reincarnation as the 10 spies that are going to go into Eretz Yisrael and spy the land. So we have to understand the question, why was Yosef doing all this to his brother? The famous question was that Yosef, how can he let his father suffer for 22 years? Why couldn't he send him a telegram? Why couldn't he tell him, look, I'm here, I'm in Mitzrayim. He was the ruler of Mitzrayim. He can't send a couple of donkeys and tell his father, send a few messengers, Abba, I'm in Mitzrayim. Why didn't he do that? So really it says that Yosef said he wanted, so the commentator said that Yosef wanted the dreams to come to fruition. But if Hashem wanted the dreams to come to fruition, they would have come to fruition. So what's this whole idea? Why does Yosef call the brothers meraglim? Why does he invite him to their house? Why does he make them eat with him? So watch out for how it goes. Something unbelievable. Really, everything that Yosef did was in order to try to bring the brothers to get a tikkun, to get a rectification for what they did in order to sell him. So now in Parashat Vayigash, comes Yehuda, and Yehuda starts to talk to Yosef. So he says to him, you know why Yehuda all of a sudden took an in now? He says, listen, I know how the world runs. The world runs measure for measure. But hold on a second, my friend. You put Shimon in prison, I understand why you put Shimon in prison. Because he's the one who caused this whole cell. He wanted to kill you. You imprison him. No problem. But Binyamin, what does Binyamin have to do with any of this? So when Yehuda saw that Yosef was incriminating Binyamin, he says, this is not measure for measure. Something here is not right. He goes, why does Yehuda become, I'll be your servant. You know why I'll be? Because I'm the one who gave the advice to sell Yosef as a servant to the Ishmaelim. So therefore you're right. If you want to take me as a servant, I accept, because that's measure for measure. So now, Yosef invites them to the house. And he makes them eat. And he taps on his goblet, and he goes, who's Reuven? Oh, Reuven, you're the eldest? You sit here. So what happens to the brothers? He goes one by one, and he taps on the goblet, and he sits them in the order of their birthright. So all of a sudden, what happens? The brothers, they start to shake. How does this guy know everything about us? What's going on? What's Yosef doing? He's eating. What happened previously? As Yosef was in the pit, with the Nachashim v'Akrabim, with the snakes and the scorpions, and he was screaming, and he was shaking, and his brothers didn't pay attention to him. How does Yosef give him the rectification? He sits and eats bread while they're shaking in their pants, because how does this guy know everything about us? Vayru anashim ki uva bet Yosef. They said, oh look, vayru al devar kesef. They thought they were bringing back for the money. So everything over here is going measure for measure. So he says to them, comes the Chafetz Chaim and says, why did Yosef do all this? He says to them, you know why? You caused me to tremble, I'm going to cause you to tremble. And if Yosef wouldn't invite them to the house, and he wouldn't sit and eat with them, they would never gotten a tikkun, they would never get a rectification for the fact that when Yosef was screaming and shaking, they were eating. And we know, why is Yehuda over here coming and taking the stance of constantly talking? Vayigash Yehuda, he's trying to protect everybody. It says, V'lo yachlul dabo l'shalom, his brothers couldn't speak to him. Now, since they couldn't speak, comes Yehuda and starts to speak, not endless speaking. He couldn't speak to Yosef before, now he has to speak a lot. So now we're going to see something even more. We know that the three that were involved was Shimon, Levi, and Yosef. Right? And Shimon, Yehuda, and Yosef. Comes the Gemara and says like this. The Gemara in Shabbat says, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon were all sitting together. V'yati v'Yehuda ben Gerin Gabai. Patach Rabbi Yehuda ve'amar, look how beautiful the actions of this nation is. He was talking about the Romans. They made beautiful marketplaces, and they made beautiful bridges, and they made beautiful bathhouses. Rabbi Yossi didn't answer. As Rabbi Yehuda was praising the actions of the Romans, Rabbi Yossi was there, Rabbi Shimon was there, Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim was the one talking. He was called the Rosh HaMedabrim, the first speaker. So as he started to praise the Romans, right? Rabbi Yossi was there, didn't answer. Nana Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, comes Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and says, Kol ma shetiknu, these Romans, you think what they did is they did for anybody else? Lo tiknu le'atzorach atzman, they only did it for themselves. Tiknu shvakim lo shivam b'hem zonot, they put marketplaces important to put harlots, merchatzot la'aden b'hem, they put bathhouses in order to beautify themselves. Why did they put bridges? In order to take the money when somebody crosses the bridges. Alach Yehuda ben Gerim, went Yehuda ben Gerim, v'siper divrehem v'nishmeu lemalchut. He started speaking about their words. And what happened? The kings heard about it. Amu Yehuda shi'alei taleh. Yehuda, that did something positive, we're going to raise him. We're going to make him a general. Yossi sheshatak, Rabbi Yossi that didn't answer when Yehuda praised the Romans, he's going to go to Tzipori. Shimon shegina, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that spoke against us, he's going to be killed. He spoke against them. He's going to be killed. So, what happened to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Where did he go? Comes, it says like this, the three main characters in the cell of Yosef were Yosef, Shimon, and Yehuda. Yehuda said, "Ma betza ki narog et achinu v'kisinu tamo." Why should we kill our brother and cover his blood? Says the Gemara, why do they call Yehuda Rosh HaMedabrim? He's the first speaker. Who was the first one to speak in the sale of Yosef? Yehuda. Says the Gemara, who speaks about the Romans? Yehuda. And we know when Yehuda speaks, when Yaakov Avinu says, Gur aryeh Yehuda miterev bnei alita, my child Yehuda, you took responsibility, and even though the brothers put Yehuda down, why did they take him down out of his leadership role? Because they told him, why did you tell him to sell you? Why did you tell us to sell Yosef? If you would have told us to take him back to his father, we would have listened to you too. So it says, Vayired Yehuda me'echav, and he was descendant from his brothers. And that the whole story happened with Tamar, and he lost his two children. Later on, when Yaakov is on his deathbed, he blesses Yehuda, he raises him back to this level. So you see the Gemara, what does it say? The Gemara, Yehuda was raised. Now, who caused Yosef to sit in prison for 12 years? Shimon. Because Shimon wanted to kill him. Says the Gemara, who sat in a cave for 12 years? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Why did he sit in a cave for 12 years? Because you caused your brothers to sit in prison for 12 years. You see, even Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the reason that he had to go into the cave was because he sold his brother. He was part and parcel of selling the brother of Yosef. He was the main one that wanted to kill him. He was put into prison. And Rabbi Yossi, where did Rabbi Yossi go? He went to Tzipori. Tzipori was what? Like a bird. Why? Because he heard Lashon Hara, he didn't answer. What is Rabbi Yossi? He's like Yosef HaTzadik. Why is he like Yosef HaTzadik? Because Yosef HaTzadik spoke Lashon Hara about his brothers. So Rabbi Yossi was connected to Yosef, and therefore he was exiled to Tzipori. You see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything is measure for measure. So we see from here, Rabotai, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you see by, I'll tell you a couple other things. Rachel Imenu, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Rachel, Meni kolech mi bechi? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only one that he listens to about the exile of his children, as his children pass by, and Rachel is crying, Rachel mevakal banan, Rachel is crying about her children. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Rachel, Rachel, Meni kolech mi bechi. Right? He says to her, Meni kolech mi bechi. We know that Rachel has measure for measure in two aspects. Why was Rachel not buried with Yaakov in Ma'arat HaMechpelah? Because when Reuven comes and he finds flowers in the field and he wants to give it to his mother Leah, what does Rachel do? She says to Leah, Give me dudae benech. Let me have the flowers of your child. So she says, no, it's not enough that you took my husband. You also want the flower of my child. So says Rachel to Leah, what? See, Yaakov was really supposed to be with me tonight. Let me buy him for the flowers and you can have him tonight. Come Chazal and say, you gave up being with Yaakov, you're going to lose your place in Marat HaMachpelah. But on the positive end, when Am Yisrael is in exile, and they're going, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu is not listening to anybody, and as Rachel is crying, a Kadosh Baruch Hu listens to Rachel. He says, Rachel, you know why I'm listening to you? Because you listened to your sister being with your husband, and you didn't say anything, so I'm going to listen to you. Measure for measure. That's why what the Midrash says, Ineh tov me'od, this is what it means, Ineh tov me'od, ze midah keneged midah. That's measure for measure. And this is really our lesson. You see that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw measure for measure in the world, he said, Ineh ze tov me'od. It's a lesson to us how scrupulous, how attentive, how diligent a person in a world that a person's constantly under stress and everybody's in a hurry to get somewhere. Many times we trample over other people. Many times we're so insensitive to other people. Says the Rambam, you should know that whatever it is that you're causing other people, it's going to come back and haunt you. And we know that really it says that Yosef, you should know that Yosef, the whole reason that this happened, it says that Yosef was going step by step to cause the rectification of the brothers. And when it says V'lo yachal Yosef litapek, and he couldn't hold himself because he saw the suffering of the brothers, you know what Chazal tell us? You know what our rabbis tell us? The reason, since Yosef couldn't take the pain that he was seeing his brothers, really it could have ended over there. And we wouldn't need to have what? How did the brothers come back to rectify for what they did to Yosef? They came back at the time of the Churban Beit HaMikdash. They came back in a period of 250 years as the Asara Urugei Malchut, the 10 martyrs. And we all know the horrific stories of the 10 martyrs, how they took out each one and they did terrible things to them. If Yosef would have gone throughout this whole thing, he would have saved them. But comes Rabbeinu Bechai and tells us, you know why they had to come back as the 10 martyrs? Because they never asked for... Yosef never said, I'm mochel. Yosef never said, I forgive you. He never said those words, I forgive you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very diligent when it comes to some other people's feelings. We are constantly encountered with people. As a person who lives in your jobs, in your homes, especially with your family, a person, the more you're close to somebody, the closer somebody is in your proximity, many times that comfort zone becomes a very open-ended comfort zone. With our wives, with our children, everything leaves a scar. Therefore, you should know that measure for measure, everything in life leaves a scar, and every word that comes out of a person's mouth has to be calculated because you don't know what that arrow is gonna hit. That's the message. You see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my friend, the world runs measure for measure. Be careful. You're in a hurry. You're in a life where everything is quick. But when you deal with another human being, especially your family members or your close friends, where sometimes the veil is dropped over there because you see them all the time and the sensitivity to that person becomes a little bit more lax, that's where a person has to take a step back and has to realize, what am I saying? What am I doing? Because the world runs measure for measure, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to you, folks, the things that you have to raise is your sensitivity level. Be sure that you're sensitive to others. Because look at these tzaddikim, Yaakov Avinu, you're talking about Yaakov Avinu. You're talking about Yosef HaTzaddik. These are our forefathers. When in the same token, every day a person says, Elokei Yaakov, the father of the God of Yaakov. Nonetheless, even with Yaakov, though we know that he did actions that were 100%, there was still a limit of measure for measure. There was still a limit that HaKadosh Baruch Hu held him to. In that same token, we have to take this message to ourselves, and especially in a time, like we said, where anti-Semitism is rising in the world, and a time where we have to show an extra love and an extra care for a fellow Jew, and especially those ones that are close to us. A person has to be very scrupulous, he has to be very diligent, he has to be very attentive to the words that he's using and the actions that he's using when coming in contact with other people.